Indy 500 fans, welcome to Formula Pun Racer, the channel where car racing and comedy collide. At long last, I give you at last in this video my in-depth review of the 109th running of the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500, which occurred back on May 25th, 2025. Yeah, I know I'm late on this video review, just a lot of things to be taken care of, but I just know for a fact that this race was indeed worth a humongous review. Many records were broken, and historical moments were recorded, and Paul, the voice of the Indy 500, a few new pages were written in this new chapter of the greatest spectacle in racing. So let's see how it all started. Well, for one thing, the front row was quite a unexpected one at that, because third place starter would be two-time runner-up Patricia Ward of Mexico driving for Arrow McLaren. The center of the front row was two-time Indy 500 winner Takuma Sato of Japan, driving for Rahal Letterman Lanigan in a one-race deal with the team. But the biggest surprise of the starting grid was a rookie from Israel. That's right, an Israeli driver for the first time not only races in the Indy 500, but takes the pole in his first attempt. Robert Schwartzman, driving for Prima Racing. And so, you could say that this race, well, would be a surprising one in more ways than one, but it started a little unexpectedly in an unwelcome manner because the race would be delayed by about a half hour because of some light drizzles.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, I know some of us could be wet blankets about having to wait a little longer for the race to start, but it eventually did. When the engines started up and the cars began to warm up their tires, it turns out that drizzle played a part in making the track not as warm, like the track temperature, not as warm for the tires as desired, because during one of those parade laps, Penske driver Scott McLaughlin kind of lost control of his cars. He was trying to weave the car around to get his tires warmed up. This was kind of reminiscent to what happened to Colombia's Roberto Guerrero at the start of the 1992 Indy 500. He was the pole sitter back then, and spun out on cold tires and finished dead last before the race was begun. The same situation would occur for the New Zealander Scott McLaughlin, only this time it occurred right before turn one, and Scott was really distraught when his car got crashed out before it was over, and emotions he has here speak for themselves. Oh man, I feel really bad for you, Scott McLaughlin, if you're watching this video. I may not be a fan of the team you drive for, but man, the fact that you were out before the race had begun, that was just brutal. And given how his car, which I like to call the flying cheese block, was a write-off before the race had started, well, as my Uncle George would probably ask me, do you ever wonder where the yellow went? Well, Uncle George, your answer's right there. The yellow went right into the wall. While it was unfortunate that Scott McLaughlin was out before the race even started, during the pace laps as well, his fellow countryman Scott Dixon would be flaring up, literally, as his left rear brake was acting up, causing the back of his car to create a little smoke and flames. But all the same, Scott Dixon was still able to start the race, and the pace laps continued accordingly, with no other incident. As a result of Scott McLaughlin being out before the race started, 3 laps were completed under yellow, so the green flag officially flew on lap 4 as the cars began their traditional 3 rows of 3 to start the race on lap 4 instead of 1. And when it started, it was pole sitter Robert Schwartzman leading into turn 1, but unfortunately further back in the field going through turn 1, Jack Harvey and Marco Andretti collided with each other. Jack was able to continue, but Marco hit the outside turn 1 wall and almost collided with Marcus Armstrong in the process. But Marcus was able to barely get away with it, but Marco's day was over as well. So, unfortunately, if you were hoping for once the Andretti family curse would snap at Indy, time to get out the aspirin, because it would not happen, and it's quite a headache for us Andretti fans.
Oh, I have a headache! Why don't I ever get to win? It's just not fair!
And I'm sorry to say, after 20 starts, just in the first corner, not only was Marco Andretti done for the race, but As of 2025, he is now officially retired. So if you're hoping for the Andretti curse to end someday, sorry to say, it's there to stay. The race would resume on lap 9, and already in the first corner, Robert Schwartzman, the Israeli pole sitter, would be passed by 3 cars. Patricio Ward would inherit the lead, then Takuma Sato and Felix Rosenqvist would bump him back to 4th. 2 laps later, Takuma Sato would take the lead over from Ward. Then, on lap 19, the yellow flag would fly again for light sprinkles. And that's when, during this time period, the majority of drivers would take the opportunity to pit. But there was already some craziness occurring as 2-time Indy starter Kyle Larson, who was planning to do the daily double, which would be racing in the Indy 500, and the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte, North Carolina later on, stalled in the pits. Patricio Ward got loose, leaving the pits as well, and almost hitting Ericsson and Rosenqvist in the process. And with memories of 2023 coming back to haunt him, Alex Palou, coming out of the pit lane, managed to avoid all of this action and get out cleanly. And unfortunately for Robert Schwartzman, tire problems would drop him further down the field. Basically, the Israelis' chance of winning were pretty much busted. In case you couldn't tell exactly what was going on in that replay, it was Robert Schwartzman's right rear tire changer that had trouble getting on the Firestone there. That's what caused him to drop further down the field. And when I mentioned earlier about Alex Palou having a reminiscent moment from 2023, well, during one of his pit stops back then, Palou kind of tangled with Rinus Veekay as he was coming out of the pits, causing his solid performance to go a bust, which left Palou to finish 4th in that race. Who knows what would have been if it weren't for that little tangle with Rinus Veekay, which Veekay got penalized for. But that's 2023, we're talking 2025. So fortunately, I guess Palou saw history almost repeating itself, so he managed to dodge a bullet by barely missing Ward, Ericsson, and Rosenqvist coming out of the pit lane this time. So kudos to this matador for dodging the bullet. And what a pity, I'd say, that Schwartzman had entering his pits. It's a pity it's the pits. Oy vey indeed. Meanwhile, Scott Dixon, who had some left rear brake problems before the race even started, well, that problem continued to worsen, which cost him valuable time as he pitted to have his crew check it out. No doubt, Dixon was fuming along with how his chances of victory were slipping away. He'd continue on, but he would finish, unfortunately, 3 laps down. What a bummer that this Iceman from New Zealand just can't get a break to win his 2nd Indy 500.
Damn it!
After 11 laps under yellow, the race restarted when the drizzle had lifted, and it was the Ed Carpenter entries of Alexander Rossi, Christian Rasmussen, and Ed Carpenter who stayed out during the yellow flag while everyone else pitted to inherit the lead and leave the field at the green flag. And it would be that way until lap 43 when Rossi and Rasmussen would pit and Ed Carpenter would follow suit 1 lap later. Then the Brian Reinbold entry of Jack Harvey would inherit the lead while being hounded real hard by Takuma Sato in 2nd, Rinus Veekay in 3rd, and Connor Daly in 4th. Then it would be Harvey's turn to pit 3 laps later, and Takuma Sato would retake the lead with Connor Daly in 2nd, Malukas 3rd, and Alex Palou, who was always a threat to win, in 4th. By lap 61, the majority of the field, including the leader Sato, would pit. Kyle Kirkwood and his Andretti teammate Colton Herta would inherit 1st and 2nd. Then 2 laps later, Sato and Malukas would retake 1st and 2nd as the Andretti boys and DiFrancesco, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan would pit. Unfortunately, though, for Colton Herta, things would go south for him as he received a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Ugh, yeah, I know, it sucks, doesn't it? I mean, Colton Herta was doing relatively well, and then just when his race was going steady, he runs afoul, costing him a chance. Ugh, tough luck, Colda. That's gotta hurt a lot. On the 73rd lap, Alexander Rossi's gearbox began smoking and he was forced to pull into the pits. As he got to his box, he shut the car off and the crew instantly began working on it, but to make matters worse, the car then caught fire as a result of the overheating gearbox. The fire was quickly doused out. Nobody was hurt, but Alexander Rossi, as he got out of the car, the expression here says it all, he was searing hot mad.
again.
Oh man, makes you wonder, what was hotter that day as a result? The fried gearbox or Alexander Rossi's understandably frustrated temper from all this? Either way, it's a shame that Alexander Rossi's race was run through a puff of smoke and flames. Better luck next time, Alexander. On lap 81, Veekay, as he was coming into the pits, lost control because his brakes failed him to slow down. His car spun out and he slammed into the interior pit wall. He wasn't hurt, but his race was run, and unfortunately this brought out the caution once again. Takuma Sato was firmly in the lead by the time the caution flag flew, and David Malukas was hot on his heels in second. The caution flag meant that those two and the rest of the drivers would peel off into the pit lane for servicing. Unfortunately, though, Takuma Sato's solid lead would evaporate drastically when he overshot his pit box, costing him precious seconds as his team had to back him up a few feet so his car could be serviced properly before sending him on his way. Unfortunately, though, further back in the pit lane, Robert Schwartzman's hard day just got even worse, as his brakes screwed him up in the process of him driving into his pit box because his car slightly spun, and he hit the inside pit wall, damaging his car, and on top of that, he ended up knocking at least 4 of his pit crewmen over. One of them, at worst, suffered an injured foot. No doubt Robert Schwartzman was bummed about this. His race was run. He still won Rookie of the Year honors for the race. Unfortunately, though, if his car had continued, he would have indeed suffered a severe penalty for knocking his crewmen over, even though I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. And on top of that, I don't know if they have bowling in Israel, but if he was learning how to bowl, he took the principle the wrong way by knocking over his crewmen over. Alright, maybe that's not the best analogy, but as they say in Israel, tell me about it. Alex Palou was the first off of pit lane after everyone else, but when the pit cycle in this caution period was completed, it would be Ryan Hunter-Reay of Dry and Ryan Bold Racing who inherited the lead. Devlin DeFrancesco of Canada, driving for Rahal Letterman Lanigan, would be in second place at this time. 8 laps from the halfway point, the race would restart again. Unfortunately, though, since they say yellows breed yellows, it would happen for sure. In turn 2, Arrow McLaren driver Kyle Larson, who is usually a NASCAR driver by trade, lost control going into the second corner and tangled with Kiffin Simpson. Stingray Robb, who just tried his best to avoid the accident, unfortunately got up out of the groove and slightly brushed the outside turn 2 wall, crossing the track and slamming into the infield tire barrier. All 3 drivers were okay, but it was unfortunate that for Kyle Larson, Stingray Robb, and Kiffin Simpson, their races were run, and I'm sure Kiffin's cousin Homer is bummed about this. No! With Kyle Larson out of the Indianapolis 500, he would go on to catch a flight to Charlotte, North Carolina to complete his double duties by racing in the NASCAR Coca-Cola 600. Unfortunately, like the Indianapolis 500, he failed to finish that race too. He would be classified as 37th in his stock car race. Nevertheless, for Kyle Larson, he did win the championship this past year, so he is the first Indy 500 qualifier to win the NASCAR championship the same year. That's quite an impressive feat, so congratulations on doing that, Kyle Larson, at the very least. As for Stingray Robb, I'm just sorry that by crashing into a rain-soaked tire barrier, he became a wet blanket when all was said and done. When the race restarted on lap 109 and Devlin DeFrancesco was leading, behind him it was a 4-way battle going into the first corner between Connor Daly, Alex Palou, David Malukas, and Jack Harvey. And when all was said and done, it was Connor Daly that came out on top of this 4-way battle. On lap 120, Devlin DeFrancesco would pit, and Connor Daly would take the lead to the delight of the crowds. David Malukas would be second, Alex Palou would be third, and Santino Ferrucci would be fourth. 12 laps later, pit strategy would play into this race heavily, as Daly, Palou, O'Ward, and Newgarden would pit, and the A.J. Foyt boys of David Malukas and Santino Ferrucci would inherit first and second. The following lap, both A.J. Foyt drivers would pit and Hunter-Reay would retake the lead. By lap 135, Penske driver JosefNewgarden pulled into the pits with a fuel pump problem, which would effectively end his chances of becoming a third in a row Indy 500 winner. It is quite unfortunate for JosefNewgarden, considering he had a bad start to the race since his team got busted for fiddling with the rear attenuator of his car, which gave him a starting penalty to start from second to last. Will Power, his teammate, suffered the same fate by having to start 33rd. And just when you thought, like, maybe he could claw his way up to get a chance, it got taken away. There goes his third in a row. With 32 laps left in the race, Ryan Hunter-Reay pulled into the pits for his final stop, giving the lead over to David Malukas. Unfortunately, Ryan Hunter-Reay's car came into the pit box completely out of fuel, so despite refueling, the car stalled and with the fuel lines dried, the car wouldn't restart. Ryan Hunter-Reay's race was over.
Oh.
Oh.
Ugh! Where's Marcus?
Marcus Ericsson would inherit the lead one lap later as Malukas would pit. Alex Palou was in third at this time, Pato O'Ward in fourth. Ericsson's lead would become bigger still as the laps wound down. Even after Malukas pitted, he was able to stay ahead of Palou for second place. When Marcus made his final pit stop on lap 175, he was able to maintain the lead even though the gap to second had shrunk. By then, Alex Palou had already passed Malukas for second. Ericsson was able to hang on to the lead with the help of Rahal Letterman Lanigan drivers Louis Foster and Devlin DiFrancesco, who were desperately trying not to be lapped down by Ericsson. The slipstream that the RLL boys were creating by driving in front of Ericsson helped the Swede maintain his pace and save fuel at the same time. With every lap gone by, the pressure for Marcus Ericsson to hang on to the lead was paramounting. Palou, Malukas, and O'Ward were filling the Swedes' rearview mirrors and were getting closer. By the same token, the aerodynamics of the cars produced a lot of turbulence, which made passing one another at over 230 miles per hour very difficult. Then, with 14 laps to go, Alex Palou was able to slingshot past Marcus Ericsson in turn 1 to take the lead. Foster and DiFrancesco continued to stay in front of the cars on the lead lap, refusing to let themselves be lapped down, but they were also going wheel to wheel with each other at the same time. As a result, just like Ericsson earlier, they managed to help Palou save fuel. Ericsson, Malukas, and O'Ward would not let Palou get away that easily. But when all was said and done, the young Spaniard was able to hold on to the lead to take his first Indianapolis 500 win. Yeehaw! Congratulations, Alex Palou, on your superb Indianapolis 500 win. With DHL sponsoring you, I'd say you delivered a victory worth remembering for the ages. This is Alex Palou's first oval race victory in his IndyCar career, and of course Palou is the first Spaniard to win the Indianapolis 500. Marcus Ericsson of Sweden would finish second, David Malukas of AJ Foyt Racing finished third, Patricia Ward of Mexico would finish fourth, fifth place would go to Felix Rosenquist, and Kyle Kirkwood would finish in sixth spot. And I tell you, I was there for this race, but there's one humongous gripe I have with Fox's coverage of the race. Despite what you just saw there, the coverage there of Palou crossing the line, the real Fox footage of it kind of broke away from Alex Palou's moment crossing the finish line because back in turn 2 on the final lap, Arrow McLaren driver Nolan Siegel crashed his car in turn 2. So basically, like, the TV crews, accident or no accident, like, they were focusing on it at the wrong moment when they should have been focusing on Alex crossing the finish line first. They could have addressed that later. Fortunately, Nolan Siegel was okay, but for Fox to screw up the $1 million shot of Alex Palou crossing the finish line a winner, whoever does the camera editing just has no brain cells and probably never went to school. And, like, I just hope that they don't do this again for the 2026 Indy 500, because if they do, then let's just say Fox really doesn't have a brain.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
I totally agree with you, ancient boo lady. Whoever did the editing of the camera shots is completely stupid. Just gets my blood boiling of how they ruined a great Indy 500 moment like that.
Anything from the trolley, dears?
Oh, well, thank you, trolley lady. I'll take candy. Could use something like this to steady my nerves after having my blood boil from how Fox mishandled the final lap of the Indy 500 like that. By the way, for those of you who probably didn't know this, that ancient boer from The Princess Bride and the trolley lady from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire was actually the same actress. Her name was Marjorie Mason, who sadly passed away in 2014 as she was 100 years old. Whew. I'd say she at least had a wonderful run. Godspeed, Marjorie Mason. You'll be missed, and thank you for your services and acting talent. Anyway, to get back to the Indianapolis 500, with Alex Palou winning the Indianapolis 500 for Chip Ganassi, this is Chip Ganassi's 6th Indy 500 win as a team owner. His first came with Juan Pablo Montoya in 2000, his second came with Scott Dixon in 2008, 2010 and 12 for Dario Franchitti of Scotland, then 2022 for Marcus Ericsson of Sweden, and now at last, a Spaniard, Alex Palou. So, the way that Chip Ganassi has been running his team, winning is definitely in his blood. It just goes to show one thing. With Alex Palou on his side, it's a real chip off the old block. By the way, I have a wonderful parody song to share with you on behalf of Alex Palou's historic victory at Indianapolis. You probably heard it before, but the lyrics I made, it goes like this. Oh yeah. Go tell the world that Palou has won Indy. From Barcelona to the city that's windy. From Miami back to the city of Indy. Alex Palou going Indy. Aye! Well, I'm glad you find that funny, Lelouch v. Britannia. Man, I wish I had his looks. Anyway, now that I showed some anime there, I can say one thing for Japan. With Alex Palou winning his first Indianapolis 500 with a Honda engine behind him, this is Honda's 16th Indianapolis 500 victory, the second winningest engine manufacturer in the history of the race, the most being Offenhauser with 27. While Alex Palou took the win and made history in his own way, the action behind him was not quite complete, because despite the fact that Marcus Ericsson initially finished second and his teammate Kyle Kirkwood finished sixth, both the Andretti boys unfortunately got in trouble with some post-race tech inspection as I don't know how or why this was, but they ended up suffering a humongous penalty and were disqualified for using unapproved parts to improve their aerodynamics. The same would occur as well for Prima Racing driver Callum Ilott. As a result, amazingly, you'd think after Scott McLaughlin's crash before the start of the race that he'd be dead last. Well, thanks to Ilott, Kirkwood, and Ericsson being disqualified for the race, those three drivers were sent to the very back of the field, and Callum Ilott was classified as dead last, Kirkwood 32nd, and Marcus Ericsson 31st. So, from a frustrating second place for Marcus all the way to third to last place. That is just gotta be brutal for Ericsson.
You're killing me, Smalls.
It was indeed brutal for Ericsson, Kirkwood, and even Callum Ilott's race to end the way it did, being penalized, disqualified, and then on top of it, all three entries each got fined $100,000 for their troubles. If you want to know exactly what kind of things they did wrong, there's a link in the description below to give you specific details on where the teams went wrong and how they got zapped for it.
Thank God.
Race results aside, I will say that the 2025 Indianapolis 500 had two surprises in store for me. The first was, well, surprising to us all, the fact that two Black Hawk helicopters would be hovering above the starting field during the parade lap. That's never happened before at the Indianapolis 500. But interestingly enough, at the same time, three spectators who were sitting in front of me in the grandstands on race day, I had a nice chat with them. I don't remember their names, but they told me that they are family members of former Indycar and sprint car race driver Rich Vogler. Rich Vogler, for those of you who don't know, raced in 5 Indianapolis 500s in the late 80s, with a best finish of 8th in 1989. Sadly, however, he was killed in a sprint car crash in July 1990 in Salem Speedway in Indiana. He was only 39. So after having a nice chat with this family of Rich Vogler, I decided, knowing that for at least 2 or 3 of the Indy 500s he competed in, he had Kentucky Fried Chicken sponsoring his race car, that I decided to go get KFC for lunch to honor Rich Vogler.
Neato.
And finally, to get back to the winner of the race, Alex Palou. I am so glad you got to win this race. I was there to see it, and no doubt exciting in many ways, because the color of your car is the same colors as my high school, Pencrest High School in Media, Pennsylvania, along with the Spanish flag. So red and gold is always a great combination. So along with the rest of the crowds that were excited to cheer you on, I was one of the many on your side. So I like to say, gracias, Alex Palou, and I hope someday maybe your momentum will be a sign that someday I can work for my own alma mater in some capacity. With that said, I wish you luck at the 2026 Indianapolis 500 and seeing if you can follow in JosefNewgarden's footsteps as a back-to-back Indy 500 winner. With Alex Palou being the 76th different Indy 500 winner in the race's history, can there be a 77th? Only time will tell. Join us May 24th, 2026 for the 110th running of the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. And even though I'm 2 months behind on this, I like to say happy belated birthday to the voice of Indy 500, Paul Page. I hope you like this video as a belated birthday present. And unlike Fox, at least I got a proper view of Alex Palou crossing the yard of bricks a winner in full unedited glory. And so I will leave you with the results, the final edited results of the Indianapolis 500, and the footage I took of Alex Palou winning the Indianapolis 500, and I will see you all on race day in Indianapolis. Time to drink some milk to celebrate Alex Palou's success. See you in the next video, everybody. I am Aaron Cylinder, firing on all cylinders.